tragic air crash nearby the Russian city of Smolensk killed the Polish president Lech Kaczynski along with the country's political elite. And while the country is still mourning the loss of its leader, analysts are saying that politically it's time for Poland to move on. But what direction will Warsaw take? We address this question to the country's foreign minister, Mr. Radosław Sikorski. Mr. Minister, many thanks for joining us. My first question to you, Mr. Minister. It is clear that the tragedy nearby the Russian city of Smolensk has greatly affected the domestic political landscape in Poland. But how does it affect the foreign vector in Warsaw's policy?
Well, we are in mourning still and not quite ready to get back to politics. But we hope that the fact that Prime Minister Putin, President Medvedev, reacted to the crash, to the tragedy in such an empathetic way, we hope that it will strengthen the already promising gestures, mutual gestures of wanting to improve our relations. I think the fact that Prime Minister Putin came to Katyn, felt the horror of that place and expressed his what he did, we feel that that must have been affected him when he learned of the second Polish tragedy at Smolensk, and we hope it will have practical consequences.
Along with Lech Kaczynski and his wife, most of the country's political elite also perished in that air crash. Many analysts have been saying that it would take ages for Poland to resuscitate from this loss. Do you think this is true? Do you think that Poland may take some time to recuperate from that damage?
It's an exaggeration to say that most of the Polish elite died. Very many important people died. I knew almost everybody on that plane. I knew, for example, the stewardess who was with me just the day before on my trip to Norway. The chief of the general staff became that on my recommendation when I was defense minister. We lost several deputy ministers. These are the kinds of people who are the real backbone of the state. They prepare decisions that we ministers announce. Particularly heavy losses are in Parliament and in the Army Command. All the chiefs of the armed services were on board, and you may imagine why. They wanted to honor Polish officers murdered by the NKVD in 1940. They felt they owed it to them. We lost 18 parliamentarians, including deputy chairman of both the lower and the upper house. But in all this, the Polish state has actually worked smoothly. I had the unenviable duty of informing the Prime Minister of the crash and of telling the Speaker of Parliament that he is acting head of state. I also informed the leader of the opposition, the brother of the departed president, of what had happened. And government functions sprung into action. So I think the conclusion is the opposite, that despite the tragedy, Poland is functioning well.
The late President Lech Kaczynski was known for both somewhat pro-American and anti-Russian policy. Prime Minister Donald Tusk, to the contrary, was doing a lot to improve the ties between Warsaw and Moscow. But many have been saying that prior to the visit of Lech Kaczynski to Katyn, that this particular visit would have helped to melt the ice. Do you think this is true? Do you think that the late Polish president was actually getting there? I mean, rebuilding ties between Poland and Russia?
I was a political rival of President Kaczynski, but I think if you read the speech that he had prepared for his participation in the Katyn anniversary ceremonies, you will read in them offers of reconciliation with Russia. But he was a man who put the bar of what needs to be done on the Russian side quite high, and quite rightly. He wanted the Russian side to come clean about all the documents, about the truth of the massacre, and also for it to really taking into account the massacre with all its consequences. But I think he was impressed by the meeting of the prime ministers in Katyn 3 days before, and he was ready to go in the same direction. Prime Minister Putin came to Gdańsk on the anniversary of the breakout of the Second World War on the 1st of September. That was the first gesture, and we appreciate the fact that he was the first Russian leader to come to Katyn.
Mr. Minister, last time RT interviewed you in June last year, the issue of the American missile defense shield in Europe was still hotly debated. Now we know that Washington has changed its plans and decided to replace it with building the Patriot missile complexes in both the Czech Republic and Poland. Do you think this essentially changes the whole situation, or is it just the same plan under a new name?
No, you shouldn't confuse two issues. One issue is that the United States has decided to build a different type of anti-missile system. And that is still on course. We have negotiated a new agreement, and that will happen, but delayed. It will only start being built in 2015, maybe become operational in 2018, with a different type of missiles. The Patriot missiles are a very small, tactical, defensive system at very short ranges, and it has nothing to do with the global system. And that's something that we just do as allies. We help one another. Russia has deployed S-300 missiles on our border in Belarus as a defensive system. When we purchased our F-16s, Patriots in even smaller numbers and only on a rotational basis for training purposes initially. As I say, purely defensive systems.